Imagine living in healthy relationships, with greater acceptance among you, without fights over forgetfulness, poor communication, or lack of organization. You can learn all of this in the club. ADHD in Action, the toolbox for ADHD. Check it out in the first link in the description.
Another point you should improve in your life, and if it's not working very well, I want you to really rethink all of this. Seek help, which is about your sleep. Your sleep also needs to be on track. It's not really a skill. You don't have the skill of sleep, but the ability to realize that your sleep might be interfering with your life. As someone with ADHD like me, it's really important for you to evaluate this. 1. Sleep. It tends to be very difficult for ADHD, adult, also for children. I've already talked about this on YouTube regarding scientific research that says that poor sleep in the life of someone with ADHD can really have drastic consequences. For your daily life, we tend to have a slightly lighter sleep, a more restless sleep. Adults who are going through stressful situations may have even more difficulty deepening their sleep and can experience significant insomnia. And then comes the question of ADHD. Okay, ADHD often comes with insomnia, and at the same time it leads to very short sleep, right? Poor sleep, that is, usually a person with insomnia will eventually reach a point where they can sleep out of exhaustion, right? Then she completes your cycle of 7 to 8 hours and wakes up refreshed the next day. For ADHD, no. Even if you have insomnia and sleep, you can still have a lot of difficulty completing your sleep cycle. Okay, so this is really something that could be happening, yes, just like it was in my case. I've always had trouble with sleep, especially in late adolescence and early adulthood. So like to sleep, it was complicated. I always slept in the early morning. My sleep was bad, and many times I didn't realize what was happening. So I used to weigh a lot more than I do today, about 30 kilos overweight. That made it hard for me to breathe. I had a lot of sleep apnea. I went for a polysomnography, to a sleep clinic. You sleep at the clinic, they put a bunch of electrodes on you to see what's going on. And that's important. If you can afford it, health insurance, or I don't know, somehow, are you paying for a polysomnography clinic so you can do this kind of monitoring? Do it. Because even if you're not overweight, you'll understand that there could be some kind of disorder with your sleep. They measure there. How much time did you spend in deep sleep, in light sleep? How many times did you wake up? Because you wake up during the night, you go there, drink some water, and you don't even remember it. So these are things that aren't conscious. You think you slept the whole time, but you didn't. So it's important for you to do this kind of evaluation. And my sleep was really bad. I was very overweight, then I lost weight. My sleep got better, although even today it's still not perfect. So my psychiatrist prescribes medication to help me with sleep. I'm not going to tell you what this medicine is here, okay? It's not relevant because you need to discuss it with your doctor in your case, okay? Be your sleep doctor, your psychiatrist, neurologist, they'll guide you in that regard. Besides all that I've mentioned, we also have to see that going to bed by itself can be something boring for us. Something boring for ADHD. A trick that I managed to set up for myself to fall asleep a little more easily is to do some reading. Whenever I read before going to sleep, it seems like sleep comes on faster. But going to bed can be something really boring. We end up finding other things to do just to avoid going to bed. Okay. This seems illogical to those who don't go through it. For those with this difficulty, they'll understand. Our mind wanders. Okay? And then our mind wanders. You think about the mistakes you've made. You try to remember. You remember and then forget something important that you had done, right? In other words, your mind is racing when it's time to sleep. Okay, so if that's your case, where you really find yourself daydreaming and the hours go by and you can't sleep, one of the really good techniques is to read. Okay, forcing yourself to do some reading, it's good that you include that in your weekly routine, a daily reading, and maybe, who knows, this reading could be at the end of the day. When you go to sleep, or even you can induce your sleep with some medication. Okay, and then you have to make that commitment. Set an app to remind you to take your medication at a certain time. Because I know that you know you have to go to bed by 10 p.m. And you know that when you go to bed at 10 and take the medication, in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you can fall asleep. But then you start to sabotage yourself and end up going to bed at 11 midnight. So don't do that. 11 midnight. So don't do that. Set your alarm for the time you need to go to sleep. Okay, an alarm for you to wind down. And at that moment when you're getting ready to sleep, you take the medication that your doctor prescribed. Or even if what helps a lot too, I'm not saying you should always take medication, but if you have a chronic issue with this, you should talk to your doctor. But what about filling your day with physical activities? That also helps a lot. Sleep, because that improves hormonal balance. All right? So that's a point you should take into consideration. Another trick, too, for you to use at bedtime. It consists of the following. Even when you go to sleep, you know you're going to be awake there for a while. And this thing about being awake, as I said, you start remembering a bunch of things from your life, the mistakes you've made, etc. The boss is scolding anyway. And at that moment, you're going to have to resist with all your might. You stimulate your brain even more. What is stimulating your brain more? Looking at your phone, turning on the TV, listening to music. This is not the time for that. For me, reading is relaxing, especially reading with a lamp on and everything. You don't have that screen, that brightness in your eyes that interferes with the production of the sleep hormone, melatonin. Dealing with screens is really complicated. I know you're going to be there for 10 minutes. 15 minutes, what the heck, sleep? It's not coming, so I'm going to my phone. No, you're getting in the way. If you've tried for 15 minutes and haven't succeeded, stretch it out a bit longer. In maybe 20 minutes, you can fall asleep. So, this is a trick that's even used in the army. You stay there and overcome every single need, that urge, resisting the urge to grab your phone, turn on the TV, or get up to do something unnecessary. It's like drinking water for the 10th time anyway. Speaking of that, leave your water there. On the desk, on the nightstand, right there on that bedside table. And I guarantee that urge to toss and turn in bed, to grab your phone, it will pass in 15, 20 minutes, and sleep will come. So resist. Just resist the impulse. Everything else you don't need to do. Plan to go to sleep, set a time, go. If you need to take medication, take your medication and resist. You only need 20 minutes to get to sleep on time, so you wake up feeling more refreshed. At least in that sense, okay.
ADHD can indeed impact your life. Have you ever felt that if you had the courage to act exactly as you think, everything would be different? People would respect and admire you? Many adults with ADHD are wasting precious time in life because they can't break free from the cycle of self-sabotage. But I developed a method that changed my game, and I'm going to teach it to you in the first link in the description.